USA. Hi, it's Colleen, and I'm here at Dragon's Lair today. I'm with Justin, and he's with the Alamo City Saber Squadron, right?
And the Alamo City Fleet Command.
And Alamo City Fleet Command.
And then we also have the Imperial Assault game that came out. Group is coming out, the Alamo City Havoc Squad. So there's a lot of there's 3 different systems right now that we're trying to grow and expand. So
a lot of Alamo City squads going on out there.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you guys don't know about it, there is actually a lot of different Star Wars gaming that people can take part of. And that's why there are 3 different squadrons here in San Antonio, because there are different types of gaming that you can do. So can you tell the audience a little bit about what are the different types of gaming that they can do as far as Fantasy Flight gaming goes?
Well, the first and original, probably the more popular one right now is the XWing game, which the gentlemen in the back here are playing. And to my right is Ryan Coops, who actually just won the last store championship at Annuals West Lakes. So I'm just giving a shout out to him and making him embarrassing him and all that. But bottom line is the X-Wing is the kind of the dogfighting, is where you actually have like a squadron of starfighters, which you would X-wings, the TIE fighters, things like the classic Star Wars movies, and you're doing maybe the Death Star trench run, or it's the dogfighting between the fighter pilots, and there's different specialized pilots, and then there's also the generic pilots, and you basically play a game of X-Wing versus TIE fighters and stuff across the board.
On the X-Wing game, do you get a certain number of points? Is it a point system like it is for some of the other
There's a variety of ways of playing the game. A lot of time, very, very casual. In the competitive play, you would have about 100 points is the standard competitive, probably the most streamlined system. Now there's also Epic, where you can go to 300 to 400 points. And then there's also escalation, which is kind of like you kind of start off with like 50 and then you move up to 150, as like in a tournament setting. So you kind of like add to your list as you go those are a fun one too. So there's a lot of different ways to play this game, and which means there's really no wrong way. The builds and the list definitely change dramatically as you progress at higher.
So it kind of gives you some expansion. So if like you're new to it and you're not quite sure. So if you're actually really new to miniatures types gaming, a lot of time you get a point system where different ships or different characters, depending on what you're playing, cost different points depending on what they can do, and then you kind of build yourself up based on points. So this kind of has a similar. So if you're into miniatures but you've never transitioned over to this is a pretty familiar feel, right?
Right.
And then so the other type is Armada, right?
The Star Wars Armada. That one is where you're actually taking the role of, say, Admiral Akbar from like the Battle of Endor, and you have like a fleet of battleships, capital ships, and then instead of like fighter pilots, there's squadrons of starfighters that you would be using and commanding and bringing them out to try to you're playing I compare the two as that's like World War II dogfighting, because when George Lucas made Star Wars, he had the idea of World War II dogfighting pilots in mind. Yeah. And then at the same token, when he created, as the battles escalated in the movies from the original 4, 5, and 6, you started seeing the Battle of Endor, which those were more akin to the naval World War II engagement.
So you
got your carriers, your battleships, the different types of scales of ships, and then on top of that, you got squadrons of fighters, duking it out, and it's more of a grander scale essentially.
So then you get to command. Then for Armada, you get to command the big boys and some of the little boys as well. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. But so basically, you're zooming out and from X-Wing to like an Armada battle, like a fleet battle type.
And is Armada on the same ruler type system? Because I know a lot of miniatures you have to like measure, and there's like you can go so far.
There are some. I think people who play X-Wing will go in Armada and recognize a lot of the Fantasy Flight games-esque system from X-Wing, but I think they took a lot of the X-Wing mechanics and then just streamlined it and also polished things and made things a little bit more it's a very different way of as far as the movement's done. Again, big capital ships, they tend to drift, they tend to they're constantly on the go, they can't like stop and brake and do a hard turn, so there's a lot of different ways of that. And then the squadrons are also more as far as the movement, it's done by the measuring stick, so it's not as it's actually a little bit more loose as far as you move the whole squadron on a board. In Armada, wish we had the camera over there to show that.
Yeah, he's going to actually pan over, and so while we're talking, he's going to show some of this.
So bottom line is the squadrons are more flexible in moving than an X-Wing, where X-Wing you can kind of only move left, right, forward, back, that type of deal. In the Armada, the squadrons, since they're zoomed out, you're assuming that the squadrons are in a 360-degree facing, whereas the ships now become the center where they have a direct facing. So it's kind of hard to explain without actually showing it. But there is a ruler measurement system, yes.
So speaking of showing it, let's let's say people wanted to see what this is like and maybe come out and see what you guys do or get into the game. Where are some places here in San Antonio that they can come out and check you guys out?
We have Dragon's Lair here at Dragon's Lair on Fredericksburg Road, Monday evenings. Wednesday, we have people playing X-Wing at Heroes and Fantasies. Anyone who's new to X-Wing is great to go to Heroes and Fantasies, talk to Vincent Gannon, get in the game with them on Wednesday evenings. Also, they can meet at Alien Worlds West Lakes to play Armada, and that's usually the one I run over there. And
what
then,
days is that?
And Wednesday evenings as well. So
Wednesdays.
there's kind of like two
kind
things.
of spread out.
Yep. And then we have Thursdays at San Pedro. They go from Armada X-Wing every other week, so they change back between the two. And they also try to work in Imperial Assault. Imperial Assault's kind of starting to rise, but it's still new to the group. So that's but the guy who runs that is Christopher Wales, and he'll be at tabletops on Friday evenings.
Okay.
And the Imperial Assault is more like the ground pounding skirmish type game between stormtroopers and
nice.
rebel heroes and all that kind of deal. Now. The other thing is Friday is also dedicated, like we do X-Wing Armada, just like we would do here. So basically any Star Wars game, and that's at tabletop on Friday evenings. So and really, I mean, once you get on our Facebook pages too, you can almost ask somebody for a game and show them.
So tell everybody about the Facebook pages because they won't remember.
Yep.
From listening
So
to us.
we have 3 Facebook pages for the Star Wars community. First off, it's Alamo City Saber Squadron. Next is Alamo City Fleet Command, and then Alamo City Havoc Squad. So that's those are the 3 branches of our Star Wars community that have different game systems and a lot of times intertwined. Like we got some players from one system playing others, and vice versa. So yeah, that works. But please get on the Facebook to check it out because you're going to see a lot of activity going on all of them.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, that kind of wraps up what we're going to talk to you guys about tonight. Thank you so much, Justin, for talking to me about this. Please check out their Facebook pages and learn more about tabletop gaming. And you can check us out on Game Expo and Geek Out SA to hear more about gaming. Geek Out SA.